Will all members of the council, as well as the public, please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation this evening will be offered by Jay Hager, Flat Rock Community Church, the guest of Councilman Mike Freeman.
Let us pray. Father of mercies, creator of all good things, I pray in your Son Jesus' name for our government leaders and administrators. Bless them this evening. By your grace, show them favor and impart to them the wisdom, discernment, guidance, and clarity necessary to make the vital decisions that they need to make this evening and into the future. We give you thanks for the peace within our city. We thank you for the help of our police and fire departments, politicians, and all of our public servants. In your word, you tell us that where there is no counsel, people fall, but in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. We take great comfort knowing that everyone in this room has dedicated their lives to making sure this city continues to thrive and be a place of abundant opportunity, beauty, and prosperity. We think of the least of these this evening and ask that you please bring healing to those in our city who are hurting and in need, jobs for the unemployed, refuge for the homeless, peace for those living amidst violence, healing for those who are marginalized and forgotten, access to education for all of our children, empowerment for those who need a second chance, rehabilitation for those who are incarcerated and in recovery. We pray for the application of your love and your grace to the lost and the lonely, and a special blessing upon Mayor Barry and Vice Mayor Briley as they execute their jobs. Give each man and woman here the courage and strength necessary to execute the jobs you've called them to do. May justice reign in this place for your glory and the good of those in this city. We ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Without objection, we'll suspend the calling of the roll and ask the clerk to record the names of those members present throughout the meeting. Is there a motion for adoption of minutes of meeting of August 2nd, 2016? Without objection, the minutes will stand approved as written. Madam Clerk, are there any messages from the mayor?
There are no messages from the mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We now move to elections and confirmations. Is there a report from the Rules, Confirmations, and Public Elections Committee? Councilman Shulman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Members of the council, there is a report from the Rules Committee. We looked at 3 reappointments. The first reappointment for the Employee Benefit Board of Dr. Stephanie Bailey needed to be deferred 1 meeting. Dr. Bailey was not able to attend today, so we will look at it at the next meeting. On the reappointment of Ms. Shannon Rabin for the Procurement Standards Board, that's for a term expiring July 20th, 2019. Ms. Rabin has an interesting background, so currently a corporate counsel, and also we learned that she was a former homecoming queen, almost, at Hunters Lane High School. After a lot of discussion, we recommended approval of the reappointment of Ms. Rabin by a vote of 8-4-0 against. Move for approval.
You've heard the motion for confirmation of Ms. Rabin to the Procurement Standards Board. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Councilman Shulman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. And on the last one we considered Tourism and Convention Commission, reappointment of Mr. Randy Miller for a term expiring June 30th, 2019. Mr. Miller has served for 2 years on the Tourism and Convention Commission. Pretty heavy burden with all the tourists that we've got. Comes from Gaylord, lots of experience. We approve that one 8-4-0 against. Move for approval.
You've heard the motion for confirmation of Mr. Randy Miller to the Tourism and Convention Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Councilman Shulman. We would like to recognize those citizens who were confirmed tonight. If you'll please stand and as I call your name, and remain standing until all have been introduced. To the Procurement Standards Board, Ms. Shannon Rabin, and to the Tourism and Convention Commission, Mr. Randy Miller. On behalf of the entire Metro Council, we thank you for your willingness to serve and to volunteer your time and expertise. Thank you very much. That brings us to resolutions on public hearing. Glad you got my back down there. RS 2016-338, Councilman Scott Davis. Exempts Mas Tacos, por favor, LLC from at 732 McFerrin Avenue from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit. Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to open public hearing, please.
Would all those in favor of RS 2016-338 please raise your hands? All those opposed? Seeing one opposed, would those in favor like to come to the microphone and speak? I'll get it.
So this is my first public hearing, so
Yep,
I
so
guess.
please
Here.
just state your name and address.
Teresa Mason, 1408 North 14th Street, but I'm the owner of Mas Tacos, por favor. So we currently have a liquor license, and we're doing business there. We are within 3 residences within 100 feet. There are 2 restaurants also that are on the corner that serve beer as well as a convenience store. So we're just hoping to do the same.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor? Anybody in favor who would like to come up and speak, you're more than welcome to. All right. But you got to come on up.
Cecily Shamim, East L Avenue in Inglewood. I go there all the time. They're a great restaurant in the neighborhood, and I strongly support this effort on her behalf.
Thank you.
Karen Kashchak, 1122 North 6th Street. Absolutely, there are many restaurants in that area, and it's a great neighborhood spot to go, so I highly support it.
Thank you. All right.
Deborah Volley, 2005 Upland Drive. Teresa has been a great addition to our neighborhood, and her business, I know, is loved by many. So I support her goal here in getting a beer permit.
All right, seeing no one else in favor, would those in opposition like to come to the microphone? Please state your name and address.
Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Sharon Shaw McEwen, 717 Hart Avenue. I'd like to speak in opposition to this waiver. The individuals who made our laws really did not do so recklessly. They had a reason for saying that to protect especially neighborhoods, residential areas, children and families, especially where there are children, teenagers who may get into things that they shouldn't go into, places, ask for things that they shouldn't have. They had reasons for establishing those laws. My request is simply that we would do what the law says. The law says there is a minimum requirement, and my request is simply, because I've been in that neighborhood for 60 years, plus years, we'd like not to see the character of that neighborhood changed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Seeing no one else in opposition, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Councilman Davis. We do need to get a committee report as well. I skipped over that the first time.
I'd like to get the committee report, please.
Thank you. Councilman Pardue.
Public safety deferred by Rule 50.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay. So we have, the public hearing is closed. It is deferred by rule. It'll be back on the agenda at the next meeting. That brings us to the consent agenda. And the following items will be on the consent agenda. RS 2016-335, 339, 342, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, and 48. Is there a council member who'd like to pull any of those items off the consent agenda? Seeing none. RS 2016-335, Pridemore, Allen, and Withers, approves a grant from the Metro Development and Housing Agency to the Historical Commission to determine potentially adverse effects to historic properties. RS 2016-339, approves an amendment from the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund to the to the Mayor's Office of Economic and Community Development to implement a program designed to improve the financial stability of households. RS 2016-342, Pridemore and Gilmore, approves an adoption preparation heartworm treatment grant from the Petco Foundation to the Metro Board of Health to increase efforts to battle heartworm disease. RS 2016-343, Haywood and Pridemore, approves a grant from the State Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to provide space and access applications for one-stop partners in the American Job Centers for Employment and Training Programs. RS 2016-344, O'Connell, Allen, and Elrod, authorizes Albany Road Real Estate Partners, LLC to construct and install an aerial encroachment at 201 4th Avenue North. RS 2016-345, O'Connell, Allen, and Elrod, authorizes Hard Rock Cafe International Incorporated to construct and install an aerial encroachment at 108 2nd Avenue North. RS 2016-346, Councilman Pridemore, authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the inverse condemnation claim of Civil Spalding against Metro government in the amount of $265,000. RS 2016-347, Councilman Schulman, approves the election of notaries public for Davidson County. RS 2016-348, Cooper and Councillady Mina Johnson, honors the life of Jane Eskin, the first and only woman elected to a statewide office in the state of Tennessee. Committee reports. Councilman Pridemore, Budget and Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. RS 2016-335, previously approved by Budget and Finance. RS 2016-339 through 339, 342, 343 were approved by Budget and Finance, 8-4-0 against. 2016-346 approved by Budget and Finance, 10-4-0 against. Move for approval.
Thank you, Councilman. Councillady Gilmore, Health, Hospitals, and Social Services.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Health, Hospitals, and Social Services recommended Resolution 2016-342 for approval, 5-4, with 0 being against.
Thank you, Councillady. Councillady Murphy, Personnel, Public Information, Human Relations, and Housing.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Personnel Committee voted on Resolution 2016-343, 6-4-0 against.
Thank you, Councillady. Councillady Allen, Planning, Zoning, and Historical.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, and Historical recommended Resolution 2016-334 and 335 for approval, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you, Councillady. Councilman Elrod, Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Public Works recommend for approval Resolutions 344 and 345, 10 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you. Councilman Schulman, Rules, Confirmation, and Public Elections.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Rules looked at Resolution RS 2016-347 and 348. Approved both of those, 8-4-0 against. All committee reports are in. Then I would move for approval on all resolutions on the consent agenda.
This motion to approve the consent agenda is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us back to RS 2016-340. Councillady Dowell, Pridemore, and Allen authorizes the Director of Public Property to purchase 13 acres of property for a new Cane Ridge Elementary School. Councillady Dowell.
Committee reports.
Councilman Pridemore, Budget and Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance approved a request for one meeting deferral, 8-4-0 against.
Thank you, Councilman Councilman Kendall, Education.
Education Committee approved 7-4-0 against.
Thank you, Councilman. Council Lady Allen, Planning, Zoning, and Historical.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. At the request of the sponsor, Planning, Zoning, and Historical recommended a one-meeting deferral, 13 in favor, 1 against.
Thank you, Council Lady. Council Lady Dowell.
I'm asking for this to be deferred one meeting. We have a zoning bill that is tracking with this resolution, and we should have it completed by our next council meeting and move this on to approval at that time. So one meeting deferral.
Motion to defer, properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. RS 2016-341, Councilman O'Connell and Council Lady Henderson approves an agreement between the Department of Parks and Recreation and the Department of the Navy to enter certain parks operated and maintained by the Department of Parks and Recreation for a limited time during Marine Week. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Parks Committee recommended approval on 341, 6 in favor, 0 against, with Councilman Sledge recorded as abstaining.
Thank you, Council Lady. Council Lady Van Reese.
Thank you very much. The Conventions, Tourism, and Public Entertainment facilities met on this and also approved in favor, 5 and 0 against.
Thank you, Council Lady. Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, and just need to be marked as abstaining on this.
Thank you, Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move approval.
Moved and properly seconded. Is there an amendment to this bill?
Actually, yes, we did have an amendment. It's to the resolution, in fact, and I would like to move the amendment.
There's a motion to amend. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. You're now on your resolution as amended. You turned yourself off there.
Yes, I did. Sorry. I'd like to move approval with the bill as amended.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to bills on introduction and first reading. Without objection tonight, we'll take all bills on introduction and first reading except for BL 2016-376. Is there an objection? Seeing none. Councilman Pardue? And 378. We'll be pulling 376 and 378 off of the, I got it. Thank you. Is there a motion? Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to BL 2016-376, Dowell, Johnson, and Vercher, an ordinance declaring a 120-day moratorium upon the issuance of a building and grading permits for multifamily developments on property within Metropolitan County Council Districts 28, 29, and 32 of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County. Council Lady Dowell.
Thank you. I want to move to defer this indefinitely with a brief explanation.
Motion to defer indefinitely, properly seconded. Council Lady Dowell.
Thank you. The purpose of this bill that was brought forward was to work with the planning department, our school department, to address a lot of infrastructure issues and school overcrowding issues that we are experiencing out in Southeast Nashville. As many of you have heard, we are the fastest growing area of the city, and we continue to grow and welcome new neighbors daily. But we are in a crisis. And I don't think it's one that none of us should take lightly. I really appreciate planning and the Vice Mayor and all of you and your willingness to support this piece of legislation. It was not meant to produce any unintentional consequences on anyone. This legislation came up after conversation with my developers in my community about how do we best address development issues. You know, one of the things we hear from our developers is that it's not their responsibility to put in infrastructure. That belongs with us at the city. And we do have an obligation to put in infrastructure improvements in areas where we see development. And Southeast Nashville has definitely been one of the areas that has been lacking in road improvements and water improvements, addressing the fast growth with our schools and so forth. What I am looking to do with my two council co-sponsor is to work with the planning department to put together a work plan to address these issues. We want to continue to welcome development. We are development friendly and we like the growth, but we want to do it responsibly and we want to do it in a managed way that does not cause an adverse impact to anyone. And I would just like to remind you as well is that when we had our housing crisis, the Antioch area suffered the most because we had a huge number of supply of housing and not a big demand for the housing there. And so what we want to do is manage the growth in our community responsibly and make sure that we are putting improvements in areas where we have the growth. So again, I want to thank you. I will bring this bill back if it's necessary, but I'm looking forward to working together, putting together a work plan to look at how we can better address the growth in our area. So thank you. And I renew to defer indefinitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Bill 2016-378, Councilman Rosenberg, Pulley, and O'Connell. An ordinance to amend Title 11 of the Metro Code to institute a civil penalty for possession of casual exchange of 1/2 ounce of marijuana or less. Councilman Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Move approval with a brief explanation, please.
Moved and properly seconded. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This legislation is not in its final form. A lot of conversations went on in advance of filing. That's going to continue. We're going to be working with Metro Police and other concerned parties to make sure it's something that everyone can live with. I'm looking forward to hearing the discussion on this and commenting further at that time.
Councilman Pardue.
Well, my main concern, Vice Mayor, was the fact that the police department has not been brought in on it. And I would also like to call for electronic vote. That's possible.
Requires 5 requests. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're number 5, sir. All right.
Thank you.
Councilman Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I wouldn't say that Metro Police was not brought in. We did have some conversations about it. It was my understanding that Metro Police Legal had reviewed the legislation prior to its filing. I learned afterward when I saw the statement that was provided to the media that was not the case, and that's why I'm looking forward to working with them on this.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Pulley.
Yeah, just a brief comment. Metro Police was brought in on this. I know Councilman Rosenberg's had conversations with the chief about it, and I've had conversations with him myself about this. And as with any other bill, I mean, this is a first reading. We haven't had any discussion about this. There's been no debate over this, and there is a great interest in this from our constituency. I've received a lot of emails on it, and Councilman Rosenberg did allude to the fact that he's had lots of conversations with a lot of people and done a lot of work on this, and there will be a lot more work to be done on this. So I think it's completely unfair to shut off debate and kill this bill before we've ever had it before any committee, any conversation about it whatsoever. Let's at least move it through the process and see what we can come up with that's a fair statement to everybody. Everybody's going to have an opportunity to weigh in on this. Let's move it through the process like any other bill we've had. Thank you.
Councilor Lee Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just kind of rise to echo what Councilmember Pulley said, because I would be voting to see the bill continue on just because it's first reading. I would like to hear more discussion and just for us to look into it more. And usually it's our practice. We know we still have some bills on second reading that we're still amending. So as the council member shared that he's still making the amendments, I would like to look forward to those before I go ahead and vote. But since there's been a vote on it tonight, I will be voting in favor that the bill go on to second reading. Thank you so much.
Councilman Bednick.
Yeah, I also think that we should say yes to this in first reading. We always do that, and I think it's a debate that we need to have. This is something that targets minorities a lot, small amounts of drugs, and it really hurts them, their ability to break away from a cycle of poverty. I think we need to be responsible about how we look at it, and just forget that, all the flashing stuff about it. Let's just be responsible and think about what it does to our overall effort to break away people from poverty and help them be successful. So please vote yes so we can have a conversation about it. Thank you.
Councilman Bednarik. I'm sorry, Councilman Anthony Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Yes, I don't want to belabor the same point, but as a matter of process, let's just please vote yes and continue discussion on this bill. Thanks.
Councilman Pridemore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I, too, am totally with the process and believe in going to second reading, but I don't believe that was Councilman Pardu's intent. I think he's wanting a, if I'm correct, he's just wanting a machine vote as to going on to second, not going on to second reading, approving or disapproving, but just, if I kind of lost my train of thought here, but he is just wanting, he wants to have the bill go to committees. However, he is wanting to get a machine vote as to where we stand. I understand that, but I'm trying not, because the process, I'm making sure, I don't want to word it to where we're saying like we're voting on the bill itself. Or I want to make sure we're voting, and I'm maybe speaking out of turn for Councilman Pardu, but we're voting just for to show support or not. I'm really rambling on now. Thank you. That's it.
Yeah. Have a seat. Have a seat. Councilor Dow.
Maybe I can try to clear it up. I am going to support moving this bill forward because I think that's the councilmatic courtesy that we've extended to everyone. I may not and probably will not support this on second reading or third reading, but I do believe that we need to go through the process and have discussion and keep an open mind about legislation. So for that reason, I ask that we all move this forward. And then let's just have a conversation. If it's not good legislation, we all have an opportunity to vote it down. And that's what I think a lot of us intend to do and probably what you were trying to convey. Thank you.
Councilman Sledge.
Previous question.
Previous question's been called. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk, will you open the machine? Is that it? I think that's it, Madam Clerk. Please close the machine.
I have 32 for, 4 against, 1 abstention.
That brings us to bills on second reading. Bill 2016-30. Oh, I'm sorry. We have one late filed bill on first reading. Sorry? Councilman Glover.
Yes, Vice Mayor. The nature of the emergency is that, Mr. Jameson, I don't want to speak on your behalf, but because of vacation, this accidentally did not get filed. We've got a situation in the neighborhood out here that we really need to deal with to where they can start the process and the construction by September. And in order to do that, we need to put this on first reading tonight.
I'll take that as a motion to suspend the rules. Is there objection? Councilman Schulman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Just checking. Mr. Jameson, could you explain exactly why this got late filed?
Mr. Glover needed this by September. I mistakenly construed that as needing to be filed in September. He needed it done by September because apparently there's a significant odor problem in this area. That was my fault, and my being out last week didn't help matters.
I'm sorry that I had to ask you that question. I'm okay.
He
Thank
did
you.
want me to clarify that the odor is not surrounding him. It's a part of time.
Sit down, Councilman Schulman. Seeing no objection, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition of an easement on a portion of property located at 7 Point Circle, unnumbered Hermitage, for the installation of a sewer odor control station. Councilman Glover.
Move approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to bills on second reading. BL 2016-308, Councilman Hastings. Amends the Metro Code to require residential rental properties receiving allocations from the Barnes Fund to include language concerning tenant conduct in the rental agreement. Councilman Hastings.
Thank you, Mr. President. And we call for committee reports, please.
Councilman Coleman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Brawley. Codes Committee voted 5-4, none against, to defer one meeting.
Councilor
Well,
Lee-
no, not one meeting, to defer because it has been deferred 2 meetings, so just to defer.
To defer. Council Lady Murphy.
Personnel Committee voted to defer by rule 6-4-0 against.
Council Lady, thank you.
All right.
Councilman Hastings.
All right. We're going to ask to defer this bill, and we will bring it back, and we'll get with the clerk's office to bring it back up. I look forward to moving this. This is a good bill that we're looking forward to making our Barnes Fund and all of the Nashville area better. Thank you.
It's deferred by rule. Since it's deferred by rule, it's deferred one meeting. Thank you, Councilman. BL 2016-334, Councilman Mendez, Council Lady Allen, authorizes the Metro Development. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I had pushed the button.
I'm sorry. I did not see you.
Okay.
It's deferred by rule. So.
Okay. Yeah, I still would like to, I just wanted to speak quickly on it, even though it's been deferred by rule because it is coming up. And it was just to speak to, I appreciate what the council member is doing, but I just wanted to make sure that I went on record, and I just want us to be conscientious of when we make laws. It seems like sometimes, and I don't think this is the intention, but when people are in under-resourced areas, it seems like sometimes we create laws that make it really prohibitive for them to find housing. In some natures it is. And so I just would like for us to vet it a little bit more. And more specifically, I think I'm concerned about if a resident comes on and they're visiting one of the tenants in the area. And so that's all I wanted to share. And I know sometimes people that have, like I said, in under-resourced areas, if they've had encounters with the law, sometimes we make it very, very prohibitive for them to find housing and to find jobs in the name of safety. And I just want to make sure that we are cognizant of this in creating a safe environment, that we're not over penalizing people that are poor or have underutilized resources. And I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. BL 2016-334. Councilman Mendez, Council Lady Allen, authorizes the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency to accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes from operators of low-income housing tax credit properties. Councilman Mendez.
Committee reports, please.
Councilman Pridemore.
Budget and Finance approved as amended, 10-4-0 against.
Councilman Mendez.
There's an amendment that I'd like to move.
Motion to amend is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Your bill is amended.
Move approval of the bill on second reading as amended with a brief explanation.
Floor is yours.
Thanks. So this takes a payment in lieu of tax program that we started a little over a year ago and makes some minor tweaks to it. The two things it does is increase the dollar amount available from $2 million to $2.5 million, and then probably more importantly, it brings the planning department into the process of getting it approved before us. And so now we'll get a thumbs up from Metro Finance, MDHA, and planning for these projects. And with that, renew my motion.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-342. Councilman Pridemore, Allen, and others amends the Metro Code to create an affordable workforce housing grant program. Councilman Pridemore.
I'll try to speak better this time.
There you go.
Committee reports, please.
Councilman Bedney.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Ad Hoc Affordable Housing Committee meeting voted to support it 6-4-1 against.
Council Lady Murphy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Personnel, Public Information, Human Relations, and Housing Committee voted to amend 6-4-0 against and for passage 6-4-0 against.
And Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, and Historical recommended approval as amended, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you. Councilman Pridemore.
Budget and Finance considered approval as amended. Votes 5-4, 6 against, and a redirect to Budget and Finance on third reading. I'd like to move for approval with a slight comment.
Do we need to move the amendment first?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'd like to move the amendment.
There's a motion to amend. Is there a second? All in favor? Opposed? You're on your bill as amended.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. There was a lot of discussion last night in Budget and Finance concerning this bill and the amendment, and it was very informative and very enlightening. And I'm sure that in a few minutes you'll hear a lot of discussion about it. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is this is a good bill. It's going to work well with others, and I mean others as in Bill 133 and in other with people in the community, with all factions involved. It gets affirmation from both sides of the aisle here. There seems to be a lot of the construction or the builders seem to approve of this to the most part, and so do the affordable housing and workforce housing. So it seems to be getting some affirmation. It continues. The meetings are non-ending. Just because we're on second reading doesn't mean that it's over. There's continuous meetings with the administration and with the builders. In fact, I believe they actually had some today, and with other council members. So there may be some more possible changes within before third reading, which brings me to the point that it is amendable on third reading. So it's not like this is it. We have an amendable bill, a bill that's amendable on third reading, and I'm sure there will be some more amendments to that before we get to third reading. And the last thing I want to say, and then turn it over to the others who have much more detail, this is a positive momentum move. Right now, everybody seems to be wanting to move forward with something. This is the positive move. We need to keep this a positive, just rolling downhill, at least get something. So while everybody's in a positive mood, I think this is the time we get this bill rolling. So I do move for passage on the second reading.
Councilman Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Quick question. On the Budget and Finance Committee, tonight, a second hearing, will it come back before Budget and Finance Committee next time? And
that was the motion.
That was the motion. I want to thank the chairman for that. I think that's a really strong affirmation of our committee process. There's been a vibrant discussion on this. There's lots being worked out by a super busy administration too, and there are changes that are happening in this bill, and I think it's only appropriate to come back before the Budget and Finance Committee and the other committees to have the complete discussion before we get to that third meeting moment where amendments can be filed. Again, let me look at Mr. Jameson, up until the Monday before the meeting, and I expect that there will be a lot, but they need to be organized. And I think a committee system on organizing those amendments will be just a great advantage to the city. And I want to thank, actually, if I may, our Budget and Finance Chairman. We did not recognize him yesterday, which he maintains was his last meeting, so for the job that he's done in our first year. So if I can just take a point of personal privilege to say that out loud while I'm looking at him across the room. Thank you very much.
Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm not going to vote in support of the amendment, and here's the reason why. Because as it's written today, I simply don't agree with it. I don't think that it's actually going to get anything done, and here's my reasoning why. I don't believe on existing units people are going to give up income off a rental property and wait for a year or 18 months in order to be reimbursed. I think we've got to figure out the financial piece of this in order for them to take advantage of this bill. As it's written now, as it's amended now, that certainly will not happen. That's number one. Number two, when we began this discussion, we talked about a sunshine clause in here, and I wanted the sunshine period in here while this existing council was still in place. And I think that's important simply because a lot of work has been done on that. And so when we pass this, I think this body is the one who needs to be reviewing it to find out where do we need to tweak it. I certainly want to be supportive of it, and by the time we get to third reading, I hope that I can be. But those are areas of great concern, in my opinion, and frankly, I don't think it will accomplish anything as it's written now, because I don't think owners will actually take money out of their pocket, not make any interest, not make anything on that money, and for a period of anywhere from 12 to 18 months. So I think that's an area that we absolutely have to try to find an answer for. And so for that reason, I won't be voting for it, the bill as amended tonight. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Mendez.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Even if it has no more changes, I would vote for it on second and third reading. This constitutes a safe, small, discrete experiment with affordable housing. It constitutes 0.1% of the budget, or maybe a little bit less. We could debate this forever about the pros and cons. The administration has formulated a bill that takes into account the need to do something affordable for affordable housing, and to do it in a way that's market-based, incentive-based, as the development community is asking us for. This sets up an experiment that's relatively short. It constitutes less than 0.1% of our budget. We could debate it forever. Instead, we should move it forward, pass it, see what happens. We're not going to hurt the economy. We're going to help some people, and we can make it better as we go on. So thank you.
Council Lady Hurt.
I agree with, thank you, Vice Mayor, I apologize. But I do agree with my Councilman Mendez, that I believe that we should move forward with this. We've got people moving to Nashville every day in need of affordable housing and workforce housing, and I think we need to move forward and make it happen. Thank you. And thinking about the people and not just having a perfect bill.
Thank you. Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I also want to speak in favor of moving this forward. As we've said, there are still meetings happening daily, if not hourly, I think sometimes, to work on logistics, dealing with the timing, and trying to make this so that we can be absolutely sure that that builders and developers and owners are not giving up income. There are other possibilities that may come forth on third reading, and I think that there's plenty of reason to continue to move this forward. And also just to point out that the sunshine was changed to align with other bills that are also working on workforce housing, just to make those more consistent. And one of the concerns that had come forward from builders was about the shortness of the duration, so they should be supportive of extending this slightly. So with those 3 points, I would like to support moving this forward tonight.
Thank you. Councilman Bedney.
Well, I guess you all know that I'm going to say support this, but I just wanted to tell you that this is part of the effort that we've been going through for a couple of years at the committee. We asked for, the committee decided to do 5 different legislations. This was one of the 5 that we worked on the committee that we asked the mayor's office to bring back. So this is part of a comprehensive effort by your peers here in the council that have been coming to ad hoc committee for, gosh, I don't know, like about a year. And this is just one of the bills that we're working on. So I'm asking you for your support your peers in this comprehensive plan to try to do something about the urgent need, as you all saw at the hearing a couple of weeks ago, that over 40 different people came here to ask you to do something about it. So this is your chance, so please support it. Thank you.
Council Lady Karen Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I rise in support of this as well. I've read the bill. I think this is a good first step. I do feel encouraged that through different conversations with the mayor's office, that there will be efforts to incentivize heavily in opportunity areas. I think that is one of the things that we definitely want to see some movement on. So with that, I rise in support. I think this is a good first step, and I thank you for bringing the legislation.
Thank you. Councilman Pardue, you're the last one in the queue, so you don't need to say anything. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Bill 2016-343, Councilman Anthony Davis Elrod and others, amends the Metro Code by adding a new chapter to facilitate efficient access and enhance the public safety and convenience for accessing the public rights-of-way to manage communication facilities. Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
Councilman Pridemore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance approved a request for a one-meeting deferral, 740 against.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Elrod.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Public Works recommend for approval, 7 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move for one meeting deferral with just a very brief comment. Just want to say thanks everyone for coming out last night. A lot of great questions. I thought it was a really good committee meeting with the stakeholders here. Just wanted to say I'm looking forward to getting all the stakeholders together in the room as we discussed. The mayor's office has generously offered to help us with that organization and continue to work through feedback. I know everybody's got questions and a lot of feedback coming from last night, possible improvements, and then working towards amendments. And then I just urge you to listen to your constituents and just kind of keep looking at the bill and everything you heard last night and coming to terms and seeing what you think. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Elrod.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I also wanted to thank the mayor's office for getting the parties together, and thank you for the parties being willing to talk to each other, but also want to encourage the parties as they talk that this bill was filed at the urging of a competitor that I think all of our constituents are wanting. We have two very large telecommunications companies in Nashville, and our constituents are asking for more options. And a way to do that is to have pro-business policies, municipal policies of how Metro handles its right-of-way. And this is a pro-business, pro-consumer bill all wrapped into one. So I would ask that, or I guess to let the parties know that this bill is a significant step to allow more competition in internet service in Nashville. And unless there is some kind of compromise that makes the same level of changes, that this bill instead needs to go forward. So I would ask that the parties keep that in mind, at least from my perspective. And also I'd ask council members that the bill is going to go forward at the next meeting for second reading. It's going to be voted on then, or I would like for it to personally. And because of that, that meeting is on a Tuesday before Labor Day, that any amendments, if you would, as a courtesy, particularly if they're complicated ones. I know one amendment's already been filed, and we appreciate that already being in. Any amendments, please get them filed before the Labor Day weekend. That way we're not reading them at 1 o'clock on a holiday. So, thank you.
Councilor Gilmore. I didn't miss you this
there
time.
You
I'm
go,
sorry.
Vice
I'm
Mayor.
sorry.
There you go. Now we're cooking. I just wanted to stand up and acknowledge Councilmember Davis and Councilmember Elrod and Councilmember Pridemore. I really appreciate the work in holding that meeting. I tell you, I learned more about polls than I ever wanted to know, right? So I really appreciate that. And I guess the follow-up on that is I really want to hear what the outcome is from that meeting, because it sounds like all the players kind of just really need to get together and learn how to play together. So I think that's an important piece as the bill moves forward, us understanding what came out of the meeting and how the legislation can be modified for that. But I just wanted to thank you for your leadership. It was really informative, and I think a lot have come out from the mayor's leadership as well in the meeting. And so thank you, Vice Mayor, for acknowledging me pushing my button. All right?
I try. Councilman Scott Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Maybe I can lift little weights with this while we're talking, get in shape. All I'm asking with the talks is that, we always think about our constituents, always, but also think about those who need jobs, who need retraining. We have a chance to have a tech revolution in this city. Matt Wilshire, Rich Riebling, and anybody else in the mayor's office, and who are participating in these talks, please, we need a workforce development program. And we have the 3 largest telecommunication companies wanting something and at the table. And with all those smart, wonderful business people involved with this, all these smart council people involved, all those great unions that could train these great people in our districts to work, we need a workforce development program. And these companies, I'm not sure, are worth billions. And we have the greatest minds in this city and some of the great minds on this council, and we have the world's best mayor. So we have all the perfect ingredients to make this work. So we need a workforce technology development program. Thank you.
Motion to defer one meeting, properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-344, Councilman O'Connell and Councilor Lady Henderson. authorizes the Board of Parks and Recreation to issue a permit allowing the Department of Navy to land and take off aircraft on the green in conjunction with Marine Week. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilor Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Parks Committee recommended approval, 6 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move approval, please.
Moved and properly seconded. Any comment? Councilman Sledge would like to be recorded as abstaining. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Bill 2016-345, Councilman O'Connell, Allen, and Elrod, abandons an existing sewer main and 1 fire hydrant, and to accept new water mains and 4 fire hydrants and any associated easements for property located at 1100 Charlotte Avenue. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilor Allen.
Planning, Zoning, and Historical recommended 14 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Public Works recommend for approval, 10 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move approval, please.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-346, Councilman Hager, Allen, and Elrod, abandons an existing sewer main and easement, and to accept a new sewer main and easement for property located at 1104 Safety Harbor Cove. I'm sorry. Councilman Hager.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, and Historical recommended 14 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Public Works recommend for approval, 10 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Hager.
Move for approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. BL 2016-347, Councilman Sledge, Allen, and Elrod, abandons an existing sewer main and manholes and accepts new sewer and water mains, manholes, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements for properties located at 512, 514, 518, 520 Southgate Avenue and 1608 Pillow Street. Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, and Historical recommended approval, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Public Works recommend for approval, 10 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Move for approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. BL 2016-348, Councilman Scott Davis, Allen, and Elrod, abandons a portion of alley number 330, right-of-way. Councilman Scott Davis.
Committee reports, please.
Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, and Historical recommended approval, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Public Works recommend for approval, 10 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Potts.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Traffic and Parking voted to approve 5-4, 0 against.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Scott Davis.
I would like to move for approval with a very brief explanation.
Floor is yours.
I want to thank our attorney, Mr. Jameson, with this, and I want to thank our Public Works Department and our legal department, John Cooper, for this one also. This was an easement that an adjacent property owner, because when you build stuff in our neighborhoods, you got to have permission to do easements. You have to have all the property owners sign on it. Well, one of the property owners who owns a lot of rental property all over Nashville tried to shake down the other person and asked for a $25,000 cashier's check in order to sign on to get this approved. And I thought it was a joke at first. I sent it to Mr. Jameson, copied John Cooper, and sent it to Public Works. And through the great legal minds we have working for us and Public Works, we were able to say that person thanks, but no thanks. But those weren't my words. Of course, they were more eloquent and nicer than I am. And it was no. And even though sometimes I complain, I get frustrated about the process, it works. And I just want to thank Mr. Jameson, Mr. Cooper, and Public Works Department for having my communities back and not letting us get shook down for $25,000. Thank you.
Motion to approve, properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-272. Council Lady Haywood, Councilman Shulman, amends 60.3 acres of a planned unit development located at 3300 Briley Park Boulevard South and 3400 and 3438 Briley Park Boulevard North and Brick Church Lane unnumbered north of Briley Parkway to permit a 807 square foot building addition to property located within planned unit development. Councilman Shulman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. All committee reports are in. I would move for approval on third reading.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Bill 2016-238, Councilman Sledge. Changes 1.02 acres from R6 to SP zoning for properties located at 522, 524, and 526 Southgate Avenue to permit up to 23 residential units. Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee report, please.
Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, and Historical recommended 14 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I move for approval with a brief explanation.
Floor is yours. Actually, proceed. I'm sorry.
That's just fine. I wanted to thank the applicant on this project. Council members will note there is a clause in the application that says that the developer voluntarily requests that he and his successors comply with Bill 2016-133 if the associated financial incentives are improved. I just wanted to note to our council, this is a for sale project, and there is a developer willing to voluntarily comply if we do our part. So with that, I would move for approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Bill 2016-298, Councilman Scott Davis. Changes 45.67 acres from CN, CS, OR20, RS10, OL, and RS5 to RM40A zoning for various properties located along Kingston Street, Queen Avenue, Duke Street, Prince Avenue, East Trinity Lane, and Sultana Avenue. Councilman Scott Davis.
Committee reports, please.
Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, and Historical recommended approval as substituted, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilman Davis.
Point of clarification. If I defer this one meeting, would I have to do it indefinitely? Because I've deferred it to work on it a few times.
I do not believe that applies to zoning bills.
I'd like to defer one meeting, please.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Bill 2016-304, Councilman Kendall. Changes 0.29 acres from R6 to SP zoning for property located at 1016 33rd Avenue North to permit 4 residential units within the existing structure. Councilman Kendall.
Committee report, please.
Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, and Historical had a couple of questions, and so we recommended a one-meeting deferral, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Kendall.
Yes, I would move approval, but a brief explanation, please. I have spoken with...
I'm sorry, the motion is to approve with a brief...
Yes.
Okay.
I've spoken with the planning, some of the people on the planning committee, and I understand they did have a couple of questions. I sent a letter approving this. This has gone through public hearing. There was no objection. The owner of this property lives about 3 or 4 doors from it. He owns several pieces of property in the area. He bought this quadruplex, I think it is, as is, and he's done some improvements on it. It had 4 meters, electric meters on it, I believe, at the time he purchased it. Now, there's some question about whether or not it was legal at the time. In my area, you probably have a lot of those kinds of properties, and I'm sure this is not the first one that's come before this council over the years. But this property provides some affordable housing to low income, especially single mothers. And this particular landlord, who I know, and he owns other properties there, does a very good job of keeping those properties up. He's very conscientious about the residents who he puts in there. And so I would just urge you, I don't know any other explanation I could give. If I didn't answer some questions, I hope I did. Whether or not it was illegal at some point to have a quadruplex there may be true. But when he bought it, as I said, it had 4 meters on it, 1 for each unit, and I can't imagine Nashville Electric putting meters on a building and not having approval of codes, and maybe somebody does that, but this particular owner did not do it. But I would move approval. I'm familiar with the area. Like I said, there was no objection from the community. There was no objection here at the council, so I would move approval.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm going to go back to Councilor Allen because I'm not sure I quite got that committee report. Councilor Allen, what was your report?
The report was that the committee had voted to defer because we had some questions, and I would suggest that perhaps if we can get those questions answered here tonight, if the council is satisfied, they can overrule that recommended to defer. But I would like
Well,
to
I
have the
believe-
opportunity to ask those questions.
I'm going to ask Mr. Jameson to make sure I'm right about this,
Okay.
but I believe the first time a committee defers, if it's a one-meeting deferral, it's essentially deferred by rule. The only way to avoid that would be for the rules to be suspended. Is that
correct?
And that's Rule 24. So as it currently stands, unless there is a motion to suspend the rules, we're about to move on to the next bill.
Thank you.
All right. Bill 2016-305, Councilman Kendall. Changes .75 acres from IR to MULA zoning for property located at 615 26th Avenue North.
Committee report.
Councilor Allen.
Planning, zoning, and historical recommended approval, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Move approval.
Motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Bill 2016-306, Councilman Kendall. Changes .67 acres from RS5 to MULA zoning for property located at 2701, 2703, and 2705 Clifton Avenue. Councilman Kendall.
Committee report.
Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning, zoning, and historical recommended approval, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Kendall.
Move approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-309, Councilor Allen, Coleman, and others amends the Metro Code with regard to sign regulation. Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I think I'm the only committee report.
You are.
Planning, zoning, and historical recommended approval, 14 in favor, 0 against, and I move for approval with a very brief explanation.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. This is mostly in response to a ruling by the Supreme Court that said that cities cannot regulate content of signs, and therefore our lawyers have gone through our sign ordinance and tried to clear up any ambiguities that might be construed to be referring to content. So with that, I move for approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-319, Councilman Scott Davis. Changes 1.97 acres from CN, RS5, and SP to SP zoning for properties located at 1224, 1225, 1227, 1229, 1231, and 1300 Lishi Avenue to permit all uses permitted by the MULA zoning district except for alternative financial services. Councilman Scott Davis.
I would like to move the substitute.
Let's get the committee reports first.
I apologize, Vice Mayor.
That's all right. Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, zoning, and historical recommended the bill as substituted, 14 in favor, 0 against. There was an amendment that we did not rule on.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilman Davis again.
I would like to move the substitute and get the substitute approved first, and then give an explanation, if I can, why I need a suspension, if it's possible.
If there's a motion to substitute, properly seconded. Councilman Shulman, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. You're now on your bill as substituted.
Thank you. I'm going to have to ask, if I may, I know Councilman Shulman, you're going to ask what the emergency is. We have a bill that was approved by, the substitute was approved by the Planning Commission. Now, when the first set of amendments were filed, they were filed before the deadline. Looking at the floor area, there was an amendment filed by the engineer, adding some different floor ratios, and we want to amend those floor ratios to 1.6 out, to try and get in compliance with the commission, with the planning staff and their commission, with that. The problem with this is that this is the Douglas Market. It's Zone CN, and it's on a collector street. And right now, we're living in a great time in Nashville. And I have assurances, built in here, or at least tough enough, where if I can get this passed, our community gets an affordable housing unit and a grocery store. The difficulty part about this is, without these amendments in there, then I don't have those assurances. Now, I believe this is the second time I've asked for a suspension, probably maybe my first, I'm not sure. But more importantly right now is we're all fighting for, community health. We're wanting to get rid of our food desert. This area is a food desert for me. Also, we're all fighting for affordable housing. Now, we've worked on this. My substitute, if passed, does not put me in disagreement with the staff without my amendments, right? The problem is, without these insurances in here, I may not be able to get what my constituents need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask to suspend the rules, in order to get the new amendments passed, which still might not, put me where I need to be, but at least I know I can get my affordable unit in my grocery store for my community. And the planning staff has worked hard. This was a slip up. I feel like I have a gun to my head somewhat, but I need to get this done, and I humbly ask for your assistance.
Councilman, I think we'd all benefit if perhaps if Mr. Jameson gave us just a clarification on what the procedural posture is in terms of what you're asking. Is that, would that be okay?
The original bill was disapproved by the Planning Commission, but it was conveyed that they would approve with amendments. Those amendments were the substitute, which this body has now put on the table. The amendment to that substitute was timely filed by the councilman. There were at least 2 errors detected by him and corrected in the amendment that is in your packet. That came after the amendment deadline, and so therefore that's the reason for the suspension. The additional concern, however, is that at least 2 of the amendment conditions would, by planning department report, have resulted in a disapproved bill.
So it's currently a motion to suspend the rules to allow the late filed amendment. Is there objection to suspension of the rules? Councilman Schulman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. So what we're trying to understand is, I'm trying to figure out the nature of the emergency. I heard the councilman try to go through a pretty good explanation of what was going on with the changes, but my question would be, what is the emergency that would require us to act tonight as compared to simply deferring it until the next meeting where these things can be further looked at and worked out? So the question would be to the sponsor of the bill.
That's a proper question, Councilman Davis.
The person that my community knows and trusts and who they will lose their contract. The person agreed to the grocery store. They agreed to a local person running it. They agreed to a real affordable unit. And they also agreed to some sidewalks and keeping the bike lanes there. They made a lot of last-minute concessions for my constituents. There was no one that came up here in opposition during public hearing, which you saw. And the contractor and the builder will lose their contract. And there's a backup contract for someone who does not need the zoning, but may not have a nice use like this person has. And that's the issue right here. And the builder, I'm not trying to name drop, the person involved in this is our ex-chairman, but still on the Planning Commission, Jim McLean, who did recuse himself from the commission vote.
Councilman Schulman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I guess the question is, this is one of those things where we're sort of stuck. I think we don't have any of the documentation in front of us to figure out what this contract is or whether that contract could be extended. So we're kind of working off different facts. I guess I would also then ask Mr. Jameson, it sounds like, well, first a question for the sponsor. So obviously we have a proposed amendment in front of us that we're considering trying to figure out whether we should substitute suspend the rules or not. This is a new amendment with changes in it that just got filed just prior to this meeting. So no one has really had a chance to take a look at it at this point. So the second part of it would be, you're saying that there are parts in here that would have are there parts of this amendment that would cause this to have been disapproved by the Planning Commission?
That is my understanding. I do not want to speak for the planning department since they're here, but you may direct that question to your right.
Let's go ahead and wrap up this part of it. Is there objection to suspension of the rules?
So I object.
There's sufficient objections.
Then I'll just move it approved as substitute.
That's proper.
So we're now on the bill as substituted. There is a motion to approve as substituted. I see a list of people here to speak. I'm going to go through them. I'll come back to you at the end, Councilman Davis. Before we vote, I'll come back to you. Councilman Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The item that was discussed in our committee seemed, in the Planning, Zoning, and Historical Committee, seemed to involve primarily the floor area ratio. It seemed to be the case that with a 1.4 floor area ratio, the substitute would have met approval of the commission, and that the version that we were seeing on our desks had a 1.6 floor area ratio, and the recommendation was to move it back to a 1.4, and I just wanted to seek clarification on that.
The floor area ratio is something that I'll defer to Mr. Cooper and Mr. Jameson on, but there are other conditions in the amendment that are contradictory to the analysis that the planning department performed when we recommended approval to the planning commission. Specifically, it removes a 40-foot side setback in some cases that was required adjacent to a historic church, and that was part of the analysis performed by staff and presented to the commission. There are also some streetscaping conditions that are a little bit unclear, as well as the architectural conditions.
The amendment is not going to be considered. We're just on the bill as substituted before the amendments.
As substituted, it complies with the Planning Commission recommendation.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
I'm trying to catch up because there's a lot going on here with this bill, and we've had it before so a couple times and a couple of deferrals and things to get the amendments before us. This is an area that I know well, and I was excited to see this development. I thought that it was going to be a good development once it was explained to me, and I made a point to watch. I was at the Planning Commission but wasn't able to pay attention, and so I actually went back and watched the Planning Commission hearing on this property. And I was very pleased to see that the councilman from District 5 and the Planning Commission and our own office worked to take out properties of the women who did not want, who objected to being in this SP. But so when we got to planning yesterday, I was very confused with this amendment that popped up. And I am confused because I'm reading what was posted online, which is a little confusing because I haven't followed it exactly very closely. But it sounds like that the contract already can't be extended. And so, but I'm hearing tonight on the floor that it can be extended. And so I'm hoping that we could get a little more clarity from the bill sponsor about whether we are pushing this through to get what was presented to the community, or whether this is going to be a completely different property owner or not. Because I think that what was presented to the community got community support, and something that I felt like I could get behind and was excited for this area that I know well. But I'm just hearing I feel like I'm hearing something different between what he posted a few hours ago online and what I'm hearing tonight. So I'm hoping to get that clarity, because I would like to support this project, but without that, I'm just still a little confused on what's going on here.
Just to make sure everybody understands, we are on the bill as substituted. The amendment has been withdrawn, right? Council Lady Gilmore. Council Lady Allen.
I just want to go back and say that the Planning Commission was not comfortable with the original submitted bill and was very appreciative that the council member worked hard with the planning department to come up with the substitute, which, as the public hearing indicated, we felt like was a much better approach. So with that, I do support the bill as substituted, which is where we're back to. So I would like to express my support of the bill as substituted. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Yeah, I think there was a lot of confusion, but I think the sponsor has worked diligently to do what the community was looking for, as well as planning was. I think, if I may, and planning, I don't want to speak on your behalf, I think there may have been a typo in there. I don't think there was anything done intentionally with regards to the substitute. I think that's what the amendment was, trying to bring it back in line. Am I remembering that correctly from the discussion yesterday?
Yes, the revised amendment would have changed the FAR, but it wouldn't have changed the conditions that are contradictory to what the staff recommendation to the Planning Commission was and the information that the Planning Commission considered when they reviewed the proposal.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be supportive of the sponsor. I think he's done everything he can for his district, and I think there is a contract that if it's not executed this month, then the person that's involved loses the option here. So I'll be supportive. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Councilman Hastings.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to rise as a supportive legislator that's here with us standing in the gaps of making decisions as we are, as Councilman Davis is standing in District 5 and in a unique area to where we find ourselves in. There is a lot of things that need to be done. It's only as him, as the legislator of District 5, understands the give and the take of what he has to deal with. I'm looking forward for the success of this project because I know that he works really, really hard to make those things come out. And for us as this body, I want to give my hand to support all of us as we grow to be an effective Nashville as the leaders of this city. Thank you.
Councilman Murphy. Councilman Mendez.
Call for the previous question.
I promised Councilman Davis we would come back to him. He is the last one in line to speak. If you would you withdraw your motion?
Yeah, I'll withdraw my motion and say that I support him. Okay. It sounds like the substitute satisfies planning, so we should vote for it.
Thank you. Councilman Davis.
Move for approval.
There is motion to approve. The substitute is properly seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Councilman Davis. BL 2016-320, Council Lady Dowell, changes 2.19 acres from AR2A to MUL zoning for property located at 5140 Hickory Hollow Parkway. Council Lady Dowell.
Thank you. I think all the committee reports are in, so just move for approval.
I think Council Lady Allen, do we have a report?
Oh, I sure do. I have a planning one. I apologize.
That's all right.
Planning, Zoning, and Historical recommended approval, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I move for approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-321, Councilman Sledge, changes 0.21 acres from CS to MULA zoning for property located at 2125 8th Avenue South. Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee report.
Councilor Allen.
Planning, Zoning, and Historical recommended approval, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you. Councilman Sledge.
Move approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-322, Councilman O'Connell, changes 0.47 acres from IWD to MULA zoning for property located at 237 Hermitage Avenue. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to ask for committee reports, please.
Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended approval, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman O'Connell.
I'd like to move approval, please.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-323, Councilman Freeman, changes 0.26 acres from RS 7.5 to SP zoning for property located at 500 Veritas Street to permit 2 residential units. Councilman Freeman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended approval, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Freeman.
Thank you. I'll move for approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-324, Councilman Sledge, changes 0.95 acres from IWD to SP zoning for property located at 1267 and 1271 3rd Avenue South to permit a mixed-use development with a maximum 82 residential units and a maximum 8,700 square feet of non-residential units. Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This has an amendment, but I'll ask for the committee report first.
Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended approval as amended, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Sledge.
I will move the amendment.
It's a motion to amend. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I would like to move as amended.
There's a motion to approve as amended. It's properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-326, Council Lady Henderson, changes 1.96 acres from CS to SP zoning for property located at 5630 Franklin Pike Circle to permit a hotel. Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. With committee reports in, I would move approval.
Council Lady Allen,
I apologize.
That's
I'll
all right.
just throw this one in.
Committee report. I'm sorry, I was reading it here. Planning Commission, I apologize.
Yeah, Planning, Zoning, and Historical recommended approval, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you, Council Lady. Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. With that committee report in, I would move approval, please.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-327, Councilman Syracuse. Amends the Metro Code pertaining to artisan distilleries. Councilman Syracuse.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I believe committee reports first, please.
Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, and Historical recommended approval as substituted, 14 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman?
Thank you. I believe I need to move the substitute.
There's a motion to substitute. Is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. You're on your bill as substituted.
Thank you. I move the bill as substituted.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-328, Councilman Pridemore and Council Lady Murphy amends the Metro Code regarding assignment of retirement plan benefits pursuant to a qualified domestic relations order. Councilman Pridemore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. With all committees approving, I move for final approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-329, Councilman Pridemore and Elrod amends the Metro Code regarding taxi cabs. Councilman Pridemore.
Committee report, please.
Council Lady Van Reese.
The Conventions and Tourism and Public Entertainment Facilities Committee approved 5 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you, Council Lady. Councilman Pridemore.
Move for final approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-330, Councilman O'Connell amends the Metro Code to broaden the minimum distance requirements and to eliminate the minimum distance requirement for a restaurant located within the boundaries of 6th Avenue North, Union Street, 5th Avenue North, and Church Street. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. With committee approval, I'd like to move approval of the bill.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-331. Councilman Glover amends the Metro Code pertaining to residential sanitary sewage pumping systems. Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move the bill as amended.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-332. Council Lady Henderson, Syracuse, and Murphy approves an agreement between Metro Government and the Nashville Steam Preservation Society for the lease and restoration of steam locomotive number 576. Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee report, please.
Council Lady Van Reese.
The Convention, Tourism, and Public Entertainment Facilities approved 5 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you, Council Lady. Council Lady Henderson.
With both committee reports in, I would move approval with a brief explanation, please.
Floor is yours.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. This ordinance presents a really interesting opportunity for Nashville. It's an exciting one. Steam locomotive number 576, which has been sitting in Centennial Park for many years, now has the opportunity to be restored to active use for our community and for visitors. So this gets that ball rolling, and I would encourage the community, if they have an interest in that, to look at this Nashville Steam Preservation Society because they're going to be fundraising towards that effort, and we wish them all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2000. Thank you very much for your patience and for hanging out. We appreciate your commitment to to this effort. BL 2016-333, Councilman Pridemore, Elrod, and Hager accepts a donation of $50,000 from Mapco Express Incorporated to aid in the modification of traffic signals at the intersection of Robinson Road and Merritt Street. Councilman Pridemore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. With all committees voting to approve, I move for final approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-337, Councilman O'Connell, Allen, and Elrod abandons an existing sewer main and accepts a new sewer main and 2 new manhole assemblies for property located at 1200 Joe Johnson Avenue. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I've got committee approvals, and we'll move approval of the bill.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-338, O'Connell, Allen, and Elrod abandons an existing sewer main and manholes and accepts new sewer main and water mains, manholes, and fire hydrant for property located at 501 Fifth Avenue South. Councilman O'Connell.
With all committees approving, I will move approval of this bill as well.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2016-339, Councilman Elrod and Councillady Allen abandons a portion of alley number 328 right-of-way. Councillady Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Move for approval.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I do have a couple of announcements before we end today. First, I don't know if you noticed, but Councillady Haywood was here at the beginning and had to leave before the meeting actually started. Unfortunately, her mother has taken ill, and so I know we'll all have our be thinking of her and her mother. Second, some, but not all of you have RSVP'd to the council retreat, which is on August 27th. I encourage everybody who has not to let Rosie know if you are or are not going to be attending. And then finally, Councilman Bedney, you were pointing. I don't know if are you moving to adjourn? Is that what you're doing?
Sorry, I'll be short. You all got a map from me. I want to thank Kerry Logan with the planning department for collecting that information. She got it from the sheriff department. It overlaps all the eviction notices for the last year, I believe, and it also gives you information about school performance, and it's pretty transparent how it shows how evictions perhaps impact education in Nashville. So I just wanted to share and thank Kerry for putting it together. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councilor Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would also like to say I want to thank you, want to thank my council colleagues, the various metro departments, the clerk's office, the finance department, the mayor's office, and my community, especially for your words of comfort and your prayers in the loss of my brother. I can't tell you how much it really meant to know when I was away that I was in your thoughts and your prayers.
Thank you, Councilor. We were thinking of you. With that, is there a motion to adjourn? Moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? You are adjourned.